Hi guys, Craig here. Molweni.
Molo.
Hi.
Molo.
Hi Carla. Unjani sisi?
Siyaphila.
Siyaphila. Unjani Craig?
Ewe, hayi ndiyaphila namakhonto enkosi. So nice to see you guys. We're just giving everyone a few minutes to land. There's always latecomers, and then I start hearing this doorbell the whole time till I feel like I'm hearing the ancestors trying to wake me up. Nice. Yeah, great. But we will get started very soon. And yeah, thanks all for making it. Friday night. Hey guys, what's life come to? You're sitting here in a Xhosa webinar. Shame.
All good.
Or maybe this is better than before.
Maybe.
Yeah, hi Herman. Hi Jessica. Darren.
Hello.
Hi.
Deborah. Shepan. Kate. Galit. Or Khalid. Christine.
Hello.
Gail, Adrian, Raphael. Those are just the people I can see. Welcome to everyone else whose videos are off, no problems. Hi, Audrey. Okay, so yeah, I think we'll literally start in about 30 seconds. Okay, I think everything's good to go. I'm gonna ask you guys to just turn off your mics because this is not an actual webinar, it's just a Zoom meeting. So if you have your mics on, we might hear background noises and things. The first thing I'm gonna say, obviously,
You're muted.
Yeah, we've lost you.
I don't know how you did that, but
I also don't know. I'm back. Can you hear me
Good,
now?
welcome back. Wakele.
I was talking closer then, that's why I muted it for you guys. Okay, so basically what I was saying, and I don't know why that auto muted me, but anyway, it's all good. What I was saying is that we did a webinar last night, and I was reminded how as soon as the numbers in a group go above 10 people, it becomes way more difficult for everyone to get a voice. And in this particular instance, pretty much none of you will get a chance to say anything. And I just want to apologize up front. One of the things that I've kind of come to learn through, I suppose, exposure to different cultures is that the importance of a circle, the importance of everyone being able to contribute a voice. And I find this platform where one person lectures and preaches at other people, I find it quite, it's a Western mindset that many good things about a Western mindset and many not that good things about a Western mindset. So I just want to say straight up that I'm sad that I can't actually greet each of you, speak with each of you, and get to know each of you. So yeah, apologies for that. And now, having said that, I'm going to go into non-stop monologue mode for a while. So bear with me. It won't be boring, but I will try not to talk about politics. Okay, so I've actually got slides, guys. That's how organized I am. And the slides will help a little bit. They're not many, there's like 5. And then I'm gonna show you a couple of different things. And probably the thing that I didn't do, the slide I didn't do, is to give you a little overview of what we're gonna do. So I'm gonna briefly introduce myself, briefly remind us of the broader vision of why we're learning Xhosa, or why I think learning Xhosa and other languages is really important. I've got a screen I'm looking at to remind me, so that's where I'm looking. Then I'm gonna cover 10 tips with you. And these tips are around learning language in general, but specifically to Xhosa as well. And I think they're really valuable tips. And sometimes it's easy to forget them, and that can knock you off no matter where you are in your Xhosa learning journey, whether you're a beginner or whether you are a more advanced learner. I think they still apply most of the time. So yeah, welcome everyone of all levels. After those 10 tips, I'm going to share with you a strategy particularly for beginners. And some of you might think you're not beginners, and then you realize why you've been struggling a bit, at least that's in my humble opinion. Then I want to show you a few free learning resources that I think are great. I did happen to make them, which is why I think that, but I do think they are good, and hopefully you will find great value in them. And then right at the end, yeah, I mean, that's basically it. If there's a little bit of time towards the end, I'd love to hear from a few of you. And we had about 10 minutes yesterday, or even 15 minutes of answering questions. I don't mind going a bit later answering some questions, but I will try to end by certainly before 7 for most of you. And then, of course, if you miss anything, don't stress. You don't need to take notes. We will send follow-up emails that will give you links to the various things I talk about. And yeah, so you will get those. If you got the emails reminding you about this webinar, you'll get the follow-up ones as well. And there's only 2, maximum 3 more that come. It's like this whole internet marketing story. You can unsubscribe if you want, but generally I've tried to make them useful information and also amusing and only partially disguised sales pitches, such as the nature of the world. But most of today should get a lot of value, so that's what we're going for. Right, let me stop talking about that and go into the actual content. So I'm going to share the screen. And you're welcome to use the chat box and ask questions, and Zanele will let me know, and hopefully I will see them at some point. Just yet. But no Sangoma questions just yet, because that's a different webinar. All right, I think these are the slides. Let's do it. Okay, hopefully you can all see that. Can Adrian and Carla give me thumbs ups if you can see that screen? Deborah, hey Debs, how you doing? Now, I actually am a bit worried about seeing Debs because she's the librarian at the Jungian library, and I've got about 6 books that I took out a week before lockdown, and I've got them all. It's been awesome. Anyway, all right. So, sorry, Debs. Okay, guys, so here we are, learning Xhosa strategies, great. Now, the first very brief piece is about who am I? My name's Craig, as I've said. Makosi is the short version of my Isimpondo name, Makosi Mvelo, which I was given when I trained as a Twasa. So ukutwasa is a process of becoming a Sangoma or a traditional doctor. I was there in 2003, 2004. I was invited by people from the Amampondo nation who are not quite Xhosa, not quite Zulu. They generally get lumped under Xhosa, but they are their own kingdom and their own nation. And they're positioned just south of KwaZulu-Natal. And then from the Umzimvubu River, which leads to Port St. John's and up, that's generally Pondo land, also known as Emampondweni. So I was a Twasa for about 8 months in 2003, 2004. I didn't become a Sangoma. And in many ways, I'm quite relieved about that, because to be a Sangoma is hard work. But the calling for me transmuted into teaching Xhosa. Quite organically, it wasn't part of the plan. I returned from the villages in 2004 and volunteered in Xhosa high schools. And then I started being asked by people to teach them Xhosa. People were like, oh, how did you learn Xhosa? Please teach us. And then literally so many Xhosa people were saying, oh, please teach other people to speak, please. They were so happy with me talking Xhosa. And so it was kind of an organic and natural progression where suddenly I realized, wow, both sides of my Xhosa family, my family, the Xhosa speaking side, the non-Xhosa speaking side, both sides were asking me to teach them Xhosa. So the calling for teaching came about quite organically, and the stories behind that and within that are awesome, and I'll tell them another time on another platform. But suffice to say, that's how Ubuntu Bridge came about in 2006, trying to bridge not only people of different languages, but people of different classes, and also ultimately a rural way of living that's far more in tune with the earth compared to an urban way of living, which of course, as we know, is massively environmentally unsustainable, and we have lots of struggles around the urbanization of planet Earth. So, and of course, I'm not judging anything. Everything's good, everything's bad, everything's got a positive and a negative. But for me, the mission, and I think what Ubuntu Bridge is about, hence the yin yang and the mud hut, is about finding ways to create balance in our world, and obviously in myself as well, because it's all a projection. So Ubuntu Bridge started. We taught Xhosa in many different instances, many situations, from schools to government to corporates to NGOs to under trees, in fields and in the lalis, and taking people to the rural villages on many occasions. And it's been quite a beautiful journey. I work with a number of different mother tongue facilitators as well, who do a lot of the teaching in class. But me, myself, just because I learned Xhosa as an adult, much like you guys, I happen to have more understanding of what it's like to learn Xhosa as an adult. Sometimes I say to people, I can't teach English because I've always spoken English. I'm really good at English. I got A's. I used to write good essays, but I don't know where to start with someone who can't speak English. I'm like, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So yeah, but Xhosa, I know the struggles. I know what it's like. It's been a battle for me many, many times. And obviously teaching many people as well, I realized that the struggles are very common. So that's something we're going to get into as well, that we actually have a lot of the same struggles as learners of another language, and particularly of Xhosa as well. So yeah, I'm having a brain freeze there, but I was on a good roll. So yeah, the common struggles. I think I jumped ahead in my mind. There's a lot of beautiful things that I learned from being in the village. And I put this picture of Ubuntu there, which is really just a really nice picture. But there's a lot of wonderful things that come out of the learning of language and learning other people's language. And especially in South Africa, as we know, we have this a very, very difficult history, and Africa in general, and actually around the whole planet, where actually everyone's pretty traumatized. I don't know if that's a conscious thing that we all are aware of, but people and humans are basically pretty traumatized, and we're still trying to deal with that. And that's why we are easily manipulated by crazy leaders all around the world. And that's why we're also scared and quick to be afraid of others and judge others and such things. So there's this undercurrent of Ubuntu that I think makes us who we are. And I do like to think that it is re-emerging in the world. Let me move to the next slide before I get too philosophical over here. Oh, well, speaking of philosophy, here we got Madiba. So now Madiba, obviously, for me, it was Mandela month this month. And, you know, Mandela was always one of my greatest role models. He's a very controversial character, as we all know in this day and age, for a number of good reasons. But I don't envy Madiba. I think he had one of the toughest jobs ever in the world, and I think he actually did it really well. But it doesn't mean that everything was great about the nation that got built on his legacy. And I don't think it's fair to blame him either, but it's always easy to blame others. However, the most beautiful thing about Madiba, which always inspired me tremendously, was that he walked his talk. And as you can see in this quote, actually when he became president, one of his first public appearances all the way back in 1994, when I was a little lighty, he strongly urged everyone to learn each other's languages. And he said it's the best way to contribute to nation building and to reconciliation. And those among us who do not know Afrikaans must now learn to study it. Those who do not know Zulu, Xhosa, Sotho must now learn to study these languages. So he actually demonstrated that. If you've ever read any of his books or heard the story and you wonder why, what made Madiba so popular? Okay, it's his charisma, it's his personality, it's his soul. But what made most of it possible was the learning of language. He spoke English, not exactly like the Queen, but he spoke it really, really well. And he spoke Afrikaans really, really well as well. And he learned those languages, and not only the languages, but he learned about the history and the culture of the people. So through that process of learning about a nation's history, you gain a tremendous amount of empathy. Not everyone, but a lot of people. And I think certainly for me, as I've learned Xhosa, as I've learned bits of Zulu or Ndebele or Sotho or whatever I'm learning wherever I go, Chishona, and even, you know, languages from anywhere in the world, my sense of understanding increases and my compassion increases. One of the things I think is that when you know, Madiba realized that if you look at Afrikaner history and the struggles that people went through, he could understand how they got to a point where they needed to protect what they had fought so long for. So just in gaining empathy, he was able to find a sense of forgiveness, a willingness to work with others. And I think that's what we desperately need still in South Africa. At least it's so easy for the media to make us think that we're so incredibly divided. And I really hope personally that language is a big part of bridging those gaps. All right, so that's a little bit of the background. And yeah, we've got these 10 Xhosa learning tips, which I will expand a little bit on more than what's written there. Okay, great. So the first thing is to assume that Xhosa is an easy language to learn. Now, a lot of people are like, oh, Xhosa is so hard. Oh, I could never learn that language. It's got those difficult clicking sounds and stuff. And I think that's the first block is an attitude, you know. I'm shocked at how many people have just never bothered to learn. It's like they just immediately decide, oh no, I can't speak this language. And relegated to some part of their mind which goes like, that is not an intelligible system that I will ever be able to work out, which I think is a ridiculous attitude to have, but I suppose understandable. Now, I try to learn languages wherever I go, and in Japan, I tried to learn Japanese. They've got 4 alphabets. That's alphabets. That's just 4 different ways in which the language is written. I've been trying to learn Mandarin for 20 years, and I still only know 5 words. And it's just the time you have to put in just to be able to understand their alphabets, the way the symbols, what they mean, how they're created. It's hectic. Xhosa, however, in comparison, is written in the same alphabet as English, and it's written phonetically. Now, if you compare that to English, which is not phonetic, then it's just wow, 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 wow. Xhosa is such a wonderful language to learn. It's phonetic. You can learn to read it within the first hour of being taught how to read it, as long as you already know how to read English. So it's a really great thing. And, you know, in terms of empathy, one of the things that's happened for me is I realized, wow, learning Xhosa is actually fairly simple. You learn certain rules and they're consistent. Whereas people who have to learn English, you know, it's a whole nother story. English has got such variability and a lack of consistency in how it sounds. Even the letter A can represent 4 or 5 different sounds in words. So you can actually never look at English and accurately predict how it will sound in terms of its written form. Unless you speak it fluently as a mother tongue speaker, which, you know, luckily most of us do. And even then it was a lot of learning. So I feel sorry for people who have to learn English. I really do. And it's the language everyone kind of has to learn. And it's a nice language. I dig it. I'm not knocking English, but it's not easy. And it's not consistent. Whereas Xhosa, very consistent. And that makes it a pleasure in my mind. And it saves a huge amount of time. So that's the first point. Assume it's an easy language. Obviously, every language is difficult to learn. All of them have the same difficulty struggles. They all got thousands of words and huge amounts of grammatical variations. Of course, no one's saying any language is easy, but it's easier relative to many. And I think that's something to bear in mind, that we've got like a huge head start when learning Xhosa. And of course, Xhosa is very similar to Zulu, huge overlap. Same with Ndebele, same with Siswati in Swaziland. They're basically all one language that has formed into its own variations that have become known as different languages and are obviously different in certain ways, but they are 85 to 90% the same. And they even have variations within, like Xhosa people assume is one language, but it's like a lot of different kingdoms that make up the Xhosa people. For instance, the Mpondo that I spoke about, or Mandela's people who were the Abatembu. So you've got the Tembu, you've got the Bomvana, you've got the Tsaleka, the Chachabe, you've got the Bata, you've got the Mpondomise, the Mpondo, and so on. And really, if you dig into the history of the Abenguni people, you realize that all these constructs, Xhosa, Zulu, Swazi, and Ndebele, they're actually almost colonial constructs in a sense. People got divided and kind of identified in a certain group. That's not always accurate. The relevance of that is just that the language is, you know, you're not just learning one isolated language, you're learning basically 4 of South Africa's languages. And if you did move to one of those areas, you would be able to quite quickly adjust from Xhosa to Zulu to Siswati to Sindebele. And of course, even if you don't adjust, you can just speak Xhosa and you will get 80% of your communication will happen. So great. I'm going to sip some tea. You guys can sip tea as many times as you want. Right. Don't start with noun groups. Cool. A lot of people, like at school, I did Xhosa at school from standard 4 till standard 7. I dropped it and I didn't do it for the rest of high school. Really, I came out of school knowing Ngubani Gamalako, Injayam, and Molo Tishalakazi. And of course, when I was at school, no one told me why I should be learning Xhosa. There was no one to inspire me. There was no reason for it. We had a Tishala and she taught us things, or Tishalakazi, and that was cool. And we learned Umziwacha, but it didn't translate. Even the Xhosa guys who were at school with us, which was like 5 of them out of 120, they were expected to speak English. We didn't even think that we should speak to them in Xhosa. And I hope this is changing nowadays in our schools, but we are still very divided in the schooling system, sadly. And that's like a massive problem in our country. But anyways, yeah. So learning the language, what we did at school is we learned noun groups. And if you go to university, if you go to a lot of courses, you will learn noun groups quite quickly. Most textbooks, and I've got pretty much all of them, and they're all awesome. I have huge respect for the Xhosa textbooks out there. They start with noun groups pretty much after molo. And I think if you guys came to me and we were going to learn Xhosa with me for a year, like every day, and I was going to teach you the language, yeah, we would do noun groups, of course, because you can't learn the language without at least understanding how noun groups work. But to start with them is a really bad idea. And I think it speaks to this idea of when you're learning Xhosa and maybe any language, there's two types of proficiency. There's your kind of grammatical vocabulary knowledge, and then there's your like think in the spur of the moment, make do with what you got, communicate with people proficiency. So you got these two things going. This is like the proper one, like proper grammar, proper vocab. And this is the one that's just like, I'm going to communicate here. And I think it's very important to balance those two as you go. And I think certainly for me, and I see it with a lot of students and for a lot of people who are intellectually minded, so to speak, we want to know everything before we go into an uncomfortable space of talking and being disempowered in the language space. And I think that puts a lot of people off, or it scares them away quickly, or they spend all their time learning lots and lots and lots of grammar, but not developing their spoken ability with people. So you have to get that balance right between speaking and learning, and they literally have to go hand in hand, which is why at Ubuntu Bridge, that's what we teach. We're like, this is what you need to know. You see a Xhosa person, this is the first words you need to use. These are the second words, these are the third words. Now you got a couple of options of what's going to be asked of you, and these are the kinds of things you need to say. And get comfortable saying them. There will be 1,000 of your conversations will be pretty much the same for a long time. Get comfortable in that space, get confident with what you know, even though you also know that you don't know most. You don't even need to know most of Xhosa to be able to become confident in the beginnings and the basics, and then you start to expand. What's lucky for us is that we live in a country where most people do speak English. Even the Xhosa people that don't speak good English, there's usually enough there to communicate with. And they're the people who I make the most effort with to at least meet them halfway. And we find our understanding in that space. And that's great. It's way better than just expecting it in one direction. So yeah, remember that, keep it in balance. Don't try to know all the grammar. It's not going to work as a strategy, I don't think, not for most of us. And at the same time, don't just go in with 5 words, to people and like, yeah, use molo, sharp, grand, and, because I think, people can tell if you only know 4 words. It's like, no, don't use it then. I think you also need to know that you've made an effort and be able to demonstrate that, like, even if it's basics, you know how to use them properly, you know how to click properly. And these are not hard things. These are like the first couple of lessons. Like in 3 lessons, we got you saying the right things, and you can find them in the right books as well. So that's also important. And I think bear that in mind. Like, if you don't know which click is in the word, don't use it. Just stick to English, because you can change the meaning of a word if you use the wrong click. So, okay. Don't rush in till you know how to escape. All right. So strategically speaking, this kind of speaks to what I've just said. People come to our first lesson and they learn molo kunjani, molo unjani, phila njani, ndiphilile nkosi, wena unjani, ndiphilile nam, enkosi, grand. That's cool. And you can get really good at that quickly. And then you get excited and you want to greet people, molo sisi, molo puti, molo mama. And then they might be like, yo, chini kutenu tetis klasa kangaka. And you're like, type of thing. And then it's awkward. It's awkward for them. It's awkward for you, and not all the time, but sometimes. And in those moments, you want to know how to escape the conversation. So that's why one of the first things we teach, lesson 3, we teach the grammar, and then we teach these sentences, which are, sorry, mama, sorry, sisi, I'm still learning to speak Xhosa. I only speak a little bit. I request to speak English now. Okay, cool. So once you've got that, you can start to practice greetings, because when they do speak to you, you can be like, uxolo sisi, ndisafunda ukuthetha isiXhosa, ndithetha kancinci nje, ndicela ukuthetha isiNgesi ngoku. Enkosi, sharp, ewe ndiyazama kakhulu. I'm trying. Great. And at least you can use that with people. Oh, okay, cool. You're trying, you're saying something. Oh, wow, you just said like 3 proper sentences. That's epic. Well done. Oh, your clicks were good. That's where you want to be. And that's why I say don't rush in until you know that. And then number 4, then rush in whenever you can. And I think a lot of you might identify with this one, number 4. Well, you'll identify with, you know, if you don't use a language, you forget it. You know, people say, oh, my brain's not good at learning languages. Or people are like, oh, you can only learn languages when you're young. And I'm like, no, this thing here learns languages when it needs to. That's what it does. It's got the power to learn languages. If you can learn 1, you can learn 10. But it's only gonna bother to learn all of that code, all these grammatical variations and sounds and processing power, if it's valuable to you, to your brain, okay? So you need to convince your brain that it is valuable to you, and we'll get to that. But the main point is that it's got nothing to do with age, and I can't remember what the other one was. It's got nothing to do with whether you're a language speaker or not, all right? If you only speak English, it's because you've only ever had to speak English. It's that simple, okay? And no one, or not no one, there's like a small percentage of people who just listen to a language and they pick it up quick. You know, everyone thinks I'm good at languages. I'm like, no, I spend a lot of time learning and spending time with people, practicing, getting it wrong, trying again, being humble. So I think it's important to remember that. And speaking of that, this thing of convincing your brain that it's important, you've got to do it as much as you can. Rush in whenever you can. That's the point. Speak it every day. Greet every Xhosa person you know, and never stop. Never stop. It doesn't matter if you haven't learned much more. You should always use what you know whenever you can with people. And, you know, a lot of people want their children to learn Xhosa. And I'm always like, well, do you speak Xhosa? And they're like, no, we didn't learn. And I'm like, well, why should you expect your children to learn? You're not exactly role modeling that there's much value here for them, you know? And saying that it's valuable isn't enough. If they see you trying to learn Xhosa, then, or whichever language, children will go like, oh, okay, wow, my mom or my dad is actually trying to learn that language. Maybe there's value in it, you know? And, oh, cool, I can learn with them. And, oh, I can do better than them. At last, I can like be way better than them at something. So, you know, for me, again, this is just a thing for children learning. It's like, if people want the children to learn, the adults need to learn first. And I think it's important that adults set an example and they make the effort. And this thing about, oh, we didn't do it at school, or I'm older now, I think, yeah, shame. That's a sad excuse for a nation that's not connecting in the ways it really ideally could be. So, yeah, learning by example, showing yourself and your brain that actually this Xhosa thing is important to you, because you keep making an effort, you keep engaging Xhosa people, and you keep having to work out that code. And remember, a few times where it's uncomfortable for you, your brain's going to go, yo, we better learn this code because that was quite uncomfortable. That's the one option. The other option is, oh, that was uncomfortable. Oh, that was scary. I don't want to learn this language anymore. Gonna never learn again. That's also a choice for you if you want. But if you want to learn, you need to keep showing yourself that it's important to you. So find little ways to do it. Put on Umhlobo Wenene radio. Watch certain Xhosa movies like Black Panther. Okay, this is another story, Black Panther. But anyway, so yeah, rush in whenever you can. Quality first, then quantity, number 5. I think that I've kind of covered that, which is, yeah, I've kind of covered that. And it's about that balance of a bit of quality and then speak as much as you can. Not know nothing really and just try to talk all the time. There's got to be a balance. Okay, learn the basics of culture and show respect. This sounds obvious, but, you know, a big point about culture is that everyone thinks it's this like solid thing. You know, people will be like, yeah, Xhosa people do this, white people do that. You know, it's like, no, guys, English people do this. There's not really any rule that's strict to everyone. You always find people who are different. You'll find different households have got different ways of doing things. One example, some families I know who have all the same demographic qualities as myself, their parents let the children watch TV whenever they wanted, and they all had dinner as a family watching TV. We grew up, we were not allowed to watch TV pretty much most of the time, and we had to eat at the table for dinner, okay? I go to another friend's house, I'm like, yo, what's going on? Their culture is completely different to mine. They can do what they want to the TV. That's an example of how culture can change, just even within people, within families. Sometimes I was like, our cousins were, you know, had different rules at the house, different ways of doing things, different ways of greeting people. You know, some people, we used to say, yes, ma'am, at our school, and other schools, they didn't even greet older people. Culture is very fluid. So that's the first thing to be aware of. Don't make assumptions that, oh, Black people do this, oh, Xhosa people all do that. Not always. Some do, some don't. Some Xhosa people are Christian. Some Xhosa people still honor their ancestors. Some people do both. Some believe in sangomas. Some only go to psychologists and doctors. It's not ever fair or accurate to make blanket assumptions about anyone. And it's a huge problem, as you guys know, in our society. Everyone loves these labels, you know, Black, white, etc., English. They are very purposeless, except for manipulation labels. This is the problem. And, you know, unfortunately, it's part of this divide and conquer mentality, which has worked for a long time. So, you know, it does work. So good for the powers that be. May they keep going with that if that's what they choose. But for us as individuals, let's be very, very mindful of when we make assumptions about people. And I think specifically, obviously, with Xhosa, don't just assume, don't even assume that all people are Xhosa when you see them. That's an important one as well. Everyone's different. Some people have a Xhosa mother and they don't speak Xhosa, you know? There are lots of variations in this world. Everyone's diverse. It's really wonderful. And that diversity is actually the thing that binds us all. Enough of this preaching. Amen. Makos. Okay, number 7, choose a conversation partner wisely, if at all. So yeah, this is really speaking to the fact that you might have some Xhosa people you talk with and they're just wonderful. You talk to them, and they're like, boom, they get it, and you understand them and they understand you, and they slow down when you ask them to, and they repeat in the right ways and they explain in a good way. You never know who those people will be. Other people, they just speak too fast, too quickly. You can't understand what they're saying. And it's got nothing to do with education, background, nothing. I found the variety is again, it's just from one individual to the next. And it speaks again to this idea of don't be put off. If you have a conversation in Xhosa one day and you're like, I didn't understand a word, I'm so bad at this language, I'm not getting anywhere. Just be aware. That is very, very natural. I have it sometimes myself where it's just like, what? For, you know, and it changes. Sometimes I'm like, wow, I just had the longest conversation ever in Xhosa. And then the next day it's like, yo, I couldn't even understand the first 3 sentences this person said to me. And there's so many reasons for that. Reasons can go from dialect. Reasons can go to what the person has chosen to speak. They might be talking on a topic that you've never heard of. They might be speaking highbrow Xhosa, which is like Shakespearean English. And it can be very confusing. Or it could be a particular type of street slang. So there's a lot of ways to speak any language, including English. And if you don't know what whack means, it's because you haven't listened to hip hop. But in hip hop, whack is like things that are not cool. Anything that's whack is not good, you know? But if you don't know what that means, you're not going to understand the person. So, you know, someone asking you, what's up? You know, you're going to be like, I don't know what's up, but they're just saying, how you doing? Okay, you get the point. So people do use language in different ways. But start with the basics. All Xhosa textbooks are a great place to start. I think learn proper Xhosa first. If you're looking at old textbooks and weird old translations, yes, you'll find some things that are maybe old-fashioned or out of date, or maybe only understandable in certain parts of rural areas or by older generations. Yes, that will happen, but that's quite advanced levels. At the end of the day, it is about who you're speaking with and who you are spending time talking to. I think that's where your Xhosa should be coming from. But even if that's just with like guys who are talking street tile and mixing Zulu and mixing all sorts of slang, I still think there's a lot of value in learning the fundamentals of the language. So yeah, just be mindful of your conversation partners, because you will meet people who you see every day and you speak with them every day. Excuse me. Keep motivated, understand the value of learning Xhosa. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of obvious, but I think with this point, yeah, I think it's important, guys. I think it's just a beautiful thing that we're doing. And I think there's a lot of benefits, you know, and I think maybe that's something that, I mean, for me, I felt very much a part of, you know, this country for a long time. And wherever I go, you know, even if it's in Zimbabwe or wherever it might be, the way in which I relate to people based on the experiences I've had of learning another language and being included the amount of times I've been included, like, without question. It's not just language. You can be a total racist and speak fluent Xhosa. That's not going to change anything. It's the way you talk to people. Communication at the end of the day is 80% nonverbal. So obviously it's tone of voice, it's your energy, it's the respect you convey in your way of being. And that's, you know, that starts with an intention. So you all know where your intentions are at when you're speaking to people. And that's the life thing, you know, family relationships. So we're not going to go into that now, but I think it's important to be aware that when you come into a space of learning Xhosa and you don't speak it, and particularly if you're an adult, you really are having to humble yourself and go into a space of discomfort. And I think it's so valuable for you to do that. I think it's valuable for our country to do that. And I mean, obviously I'm speaking particularly to people of privilege in this particular context, because everyone else has had to do this anyway. Having to humble themselves, having to be disempowered in a language space, having to learn mathematics and science and philosophy and debating in a language that's not their own. I mean, imagine that. Imagine trying to have an argument or fight for your life, or, you know, convince someone of something to keep your job in a language that you don't speak fluently and you don't always understand everything that's being said. It's incredibly challenging and stressful. And thankfully, you know, our stress is largely self-created at this time. We don't need to speak Xhosa to retain our citizenship, although that's not a bad idea. But anyway, we don't need to speak it to you know, earn money or keep a job. And I think, therefore, that it's great that we're learning. It shows we're learning from a good place. So respect to you all, and keep motivated. I approve of myself. Okay, that's another job altogether. Okay, number 9, volunteer in the townships and go visit the rural villages. Okay, so the simple reality, guys, is that a lot of Xhosa people who live in the suburbs and who, you know, are working in corporate spaces, they might be speaking English a lot of the time. Maybe they're, you know, in their daily workplace, that's the language they use. And they've spent a long time learning it and honing it, and it's what's comfortable for them now. They don't want to suddenly start speaking Xhosa because you're learning. It's okay with the greeting, but, you know, they're not necessarily going to always want to speak with you. And I think the reality is, and one of the great parts of the value of this is going into townships, going into the villages. They're both amazing places. I mean, I have had so many wonderful, incredible, warm, beautiful experiences in townships. I don't necessarily like all townships, and some of the things are not to my tastes, but there's so much beautiful people, beautiful communities, beautiful things that happen in informal settlements, in townships, and I highly encourage you to go there. Don't just drive there in the middle of the night because you feel like, yes, I must go bond with South Africa. No, if you know people, speak to them. Maybe they'll invite you to come visit their sports team or their children's school or their home or their creche or whatever, or just come to their house for a braai, chisanyama, who knows? Otherwise, you can suggest, hey, can I come and hang out? Oh, do you have a soccer team? Oh, can I come watch? Hey, can I come be a part of the community garden and help grow things? Volunteer, get involved. People really look after you. People are really welcoming. And I feel way more scared in the suburbs. I hate to say it, but every time I'm living in Muizenberg and it's Irie, I'm putting on the alarm, you know, when I go for a surf because I'm scared someone's going to steal my laptop. You know, it's crazy. And we think that the townships are dangerous. And of course, they are dangerous in their ways, but not for us to go there. And I think so many South Africans just avoid the townships and think that they are these dangerous places full of poverty and disease and crime. And I think it's a shame, because that's actually more South Africa than a lot of the other places we go to. And the less connected we are, the less empathy there is. And it's, again, possibly, you know, one of the most vital things, I think, for the future of our country. But I'm sure other people think it's the stock market. So I'm probably wrong on that one. Okay, so, and of course, they both are important. They both are important, obviously. All right. Rural villages, the lalis, emaxhoseni, ezlalini. Wow, guys, the Transkei, former Transkei, the former Ciskei, the Eastern Cape, beautiful places. Obviously, they got all the same and difficult and their own troubles, but beautiful places to go to. There are people who are trying to run businesses, homestays, backpackers, all sorts of small businesses that work off those places. They love to have tourist guests, and they need it, especially now. Obviously, if you can't go during lockdown, don't go. But you know, in terms of a long-term strategy, I've been going on and off for the last 15 years, and I do love it. Obviously, as I said, there are challenges, but it's a wonderful place to visit. And, you know, you can go to the Transkei or the Eastern Cape, you can go to Maxhoseni, and you can avoid Xhosa people and stay in the fancy lodge and, you know, I don't know, do stuff and not speak any Xhosa. You can do that, and lots of people have done that since the beginning of time. But you can also go and use it as an opportunity to tete isiXhosa with people. That is one place you're going to get Xhosa practice every day, all day, as much as you can, speaking to people, greeting people, and it's a brilliant, brilliant way to learn. You're enjoying yourself, you can have a holiday, and also you can connect with people and practice your language. So I might mention what we do with the Xhosa, which is the yoga and Xhosa retreats. I've also done many years where I took kids and school groups and students and all sorts of peeps into the rural Eastern Cape to stay with people in their homes, in their mud huts, and to experience life without electricity and running water. You know, we all think electricity and running water is such an amazing thing, and it is an amazing thing, and I'm very grateful for them both. But there's also something very awesome about living without them. And I'm not trying to romanticize poverty, but times I've spent living without running water and without electricity got me into particular natural rhythms, got me into particular states of mind and health that I really appreciated, and also taught me to appreciate what I have in the city. You know, I went to fancy private schools and I went to UCT, and I always had everything semi on a plate, not as spoiled as others, but definitely spoiled compared to most of the world. And one thing I got from living in the village, being a Xhosa, was appreciation for what it takes. Even in our modern society, I'd never appreciated Western culture as much as when I spent time in difficult spaces of living. You know, in the Eastern Cape in winter, sometimes the rains aren't there and you like fetching the water you want to drink out of holes in the ground with just mud and cows standing in it. Not good. I'm not recommending that, but it taught me to appreciate. Obviously, most of the year there was beautiful water and everything was great. But yes, it comes with the caveat. We're not born and raised in the Eastern Cape. You know, you can get bilharzia in some of the rivers. There are things you have to be mindful of course. Just like people who come to a city need to be mindful of the dangers. So yeah, please take everything with a sense of balance. Finally, number 10, know your goal, keep perspective. Yeah, guys, what's your goal? Your goal is to communicate respectfully with Xhosa people, presumably. My goal is that. My second goal is to feel connected with people, to feel like I'm part of South Africa for real, not just because I got an ID book and I was born here, but actually like, you know, I know where people come from and I know their struggles. Not everyone, but a large number of the country. And I feel like I'm welcomed in a lot of spaces. And that's a wonderful, wonderful feeling. And I see in the media and I hear from a lot of people, and I know most people are just scared. They're living in fear. And this whole living in fear thing is not helpful. It's only helpful for the people that make money off that. The rest of us, it doesn't help. You can go to New Zealand and Australia from a reason for fear, and then your house can be burnt down, you know, or other dangers and things can happen. So yeah, we got to be mindful of that. And I think that the more we connect with other people and connect with our own process of learning and humility, and you haven't even gone into like the wisdom of ancestral awareness and appreciation, you know. Like one of the things I learned from living in Maxhoseni and from learning isiXhosa was about ancestors. And I learned how to appreciate my own ancestors. Even that name, Makosi is referring to the ancestors. And my specific line of ancestors that go back from me over here, talking and moving things and hand and blood and flesh, all the way back. Not just my grandparents, my great-grandparents, my great-great-grandparents, not just 20 generations or 50 generations to a bunch of cavemen in Europe. We're talking all the way back to the beginning, yabo? So yeah, Makosimvelo, like the ancestors of the original state. We have got, okay, if you're a creationist, which means you believe God created the world in 7 days, then yes, we only have about 5,000 years of ancestors. That's still a lot of ancestors, guys. That's a lot of people who lived, died, procreated, and are now manifest as you. That's the point. That's where you got this body from and this mind from. It comes from your ancestors. If you believe in evolutionary, whatever it's called, then we've come from even before humans, before primates, before mammals, before multi-celled organisms. Our ancestry is that old. We didn't just pop up as a human. We've been all sorts of creatures evolving with Earth over 500 billion years or whatever it is. The point is we have a lineage, a line of ancestry that goes back to the dawn of time, and it's amazing. And you right now are alive here in the moment, and that's epic. And it's amazing how we forget that all the time. And we start worrying about like crazy little silly things. Now, worrying is fine. Worrying is part of fear. Fear keeps us alive. That's the function of fear. So I get it. And fear has a place. If you didn't have fear, we'd all be dead. So fear's got its place, but balance it with appreciation. And our ancestors, your ancestors, my ancestors are alive within us. And if you begin to communicate, even like for me, I'm not into the whole spiritual dead grandfather over there speaking words into my mind. That doesn't work so much for me, and it hasn't really happened. I mean, I've got stories. For me, it's more about a cerebral sense of appreciation, cognitive appreciation, and rituals, little rituals, giving thanks like every time I have a meal, giving thanks to my ancestors, even if I use a Japanese word, itadakimasu, like gratefully received from everyone who's played a role in bringing this food to me in this moment. I'm sorry I'm going on a gratitude rant, but I think I started looking at number 10 about know your goal. And I was like, oh, what's the goal? So I think it's really, really a beautiful part of it is getting to appreciate that we have such diverse ancestry and that our ancestors are a source of great guidance. And yes, a lot of us have trauma from our ancestry. I said that in the beginning. So it's not all just like roses and daffodils. But if we can work with ourselves, with our ancestors, rather than like trying to deny it and bury ourselves in the external world, which is the general strategy and is what makes consumerism such a brilliantly effective system. And again, I'm not, guys, hey, I love consuming. I really do. So I'm not against anything, but it's about this awareness. And I feel when I look at the world that we seem to have lost that balance. So again, I'm ranting philosophically. I appreciate that you are still here. If you are, I don't even know. I see a few of you. That's great. Okay, bonus learning tips. Common fears of all people learning a new language. I've spoken to that already, guys. But this is the point. All of you here, and I'm not sure how many there are, 44, all of you here, and all the people on the other webinar and all the people learning languages around the world all have the same fears. You know, we all don't want to look like a fool. We all don't want to be misunderstood. We all don't want to disrespect someone by accident. We all don't want to look like an idiot. You know, we all want to survive, etc., etc. So one of the best things is we can be bogged down by our fears, but when we learn with other people, when we learn in community, we are reminded that, hey, these fears I have is not just me. These struggles I have, not just me. And actually, we learn from each other. So there's this classic quote here that you guys know, if you want to go fast, go alone. That's my style, generally been a loner most of my life, and it works. But if you want to go far, go together. So for me, it's one of the learnings I'm having in life is that actually the whole lone wolf type of scenario, yeah, it's got its place at times, but actually if we want to go far, we need to go together. We need to learn together. And certainly from a business perspective, from an organizational perspective, the vision that I would like to create long-term is that, you know, people learn together in a community space and we really, it becomes a nationwide mission, you know, like we're going to learn Xhosa, we're going to learn together. We're going to try and implement things in the school systems where schools actually send the kids to live in different cultures, learn each other's languages, so that instead of a national service where you go to the army, you do some sort of national service where you go and live in another culture. And, you know, we're all swapping children with each other. So children are going to be safe with each other, you know, with other people's parents. And we, I mean, it's complex. Okay. This is a simplified version, but that's what I would like to see in this country is that people, no one hits 20 speaking only one language. You know, there's no reason for that. But unfortunately, at the moment, our schools and the way in which everyone's bought into a particular mindset, which is a byproduct of racism, I hate to say it, it's cultural superiority. It means that the priority is constantly on everyone must learn English, everyone must learn the Western way, everyone must learn that system. And it's like, yeah, you can if you want learn Xhosa, you can if you want learn about African culture, you can if you want learn about other ways of being and doing. It's imbalanced, you know? And that for me is what I think we need is just a bit more balance, you know? We don't have to blow up the system and destroy and replace it with another thing. I don't think that's the solution by any means. I think it's about each of us individually connecting with balance. And I think we can do that by learning together. Great. Next slide, if there is one. No, there's not. Okay, cool. So I'm going to give you guys a couple of free resources. Let me stop this slide share and let me find another one for you. Share screen. And let's go to could be this one. Okay, it's Xhosagram. So this is our Instagram page, and yeah, it's really great. Go and follow it, please. That'll be awesome. But most importantly, just go and learn Xhosa there, because if you scroll all the way, these are all videos, by the way. They look like just text, but you can press play and then you can hear the word being pronounced and you can practice along. And that's really cool. Sometimes it's my voice, sometimes it's Zikona, sometimes it's Lazola. And if you go all the way to the bottom, like that's Lazola teaching that sound, there's Zikona teaching the X click. But if you start at the bottom of the page, you'll find all the simple things. Molo, Sisi, Molo, Buti, Molweni, Unjani, Pilile, greeting a group, introducing yourself. I'm pleased to meet you. You speak nicely. Thanks, I'm trying. All the classic stuff that you will learn, that you should learn at the beginning, the things people will say to you a lot. Where are you learning Xhosa? Hey, ndifunda ku Instagram. I'm learning on Instagram. Hayibo, usifundiswa ngubani? Ndifunda ne-Ubuntu Bridge. You don't have to say that. I'm not putting words in your mouth. You can say ndifunda nomlungu. No jokes. You don't have to say that either. You can just say ndithetha nabantu. I speak with people, and so on. So there's a lot of free content here. I think 90% of what I've done with Ubuntu Bridge over 15 years has been for free. And then every now and again, we manage to get corporate work, government work, whatever the case, which keeps us feeding ourselves happily and able to do at least some of the things we want to do, which is great. But the main point is that there's a lot of good content here. So I highly do recommend it. What else? Ubuntu, YouTube, Ubuntu Bridge channel. If you go there, you'll check it out. You can click on videos. There's a bunch of cool vids. Some of them are cultural, dancey type of stuff. Quite fun, different things. But yeah, you'll find here the 3 Xhosa clicks taught easy, a little bit on the future tense, the clarification phrases, the greeting videos. There's a bunch of cool stuff there there's the handshake video with Sivengesi, and there's me ranting at all the different schools about how they should be teaching Xhosa, which I don't think anyone listened to. I'm quite good at ranting, and I don't think people like that very much, unless it's ranting connected to politics, in which case someone will give you money. I'm just not into that kind of stuff. So yeah, guys, there's a lot of cool videos you can check out for free on YouTube. Just check Ubuntu Bridge. And it's Xhosagram. All right, what's next for me to tell you about? We are close to the end. Yeah, I mean, the final piece, some of you and certainly people from yesterday were asking, oh, how can we learn with Ubuntu Bridge? You can always go to learnxhosa.coza, and we've got level 1 and level 2 that get started every now and again for about 2 months, and we do these supported online courses. So you basically cover the content in an online platform, and then if you look at something like this one, you'll see there's videos, there's audio, there's text. You can click the audio. I don't know if you guys will hear.
With the clicks, it is important to remember that many people struggle at first.
Okay, cool. And yeah, it's pretty nice. And you can go through the content. It's all pretty fun. But this is the important part, or one of the options, we call it AmaZoom. You can do with one of our mother tongue facilitators, and you basically meet for 15, 20 minutes once a week in a group of 3 or 4 people. You've done the homework. We've told you what to study during that week. You've covered the content. You'll see here, there's the Zoom prep. You've got your homework. You know what you need to do. You can download the sheet with the phrases for that particular focus session. And then you meet once a week. We have a whole bunch of schedules, and you can just choose and plug in. And we've got like a booking system that we are slowly perfecting after months of trying to figure that out. But it's pretty cool. And each week you have your 15 minutes with your facilitator and 2 other learners, and you practice your target phrases, and then you go back into the material and you keep going. And we've got a level 1, we've got a level 2, and we've got a level 3, basically in a similar-ish format, soon to be. But yeah, it's going to be great. I mean, it is great already. A lot of people enjoying it, and we are pretty stoked. I'm pretty stoked with it because, well, to be perfectly honest, it's helping us to reach more people than all the live sessions we've always done, which is, yeah, that's another story. I won't go into it. The good news is we've got lots of beautiful things, and there's lots for you to learn with. And again, there are lots of books that I recommend as well that you can find in most bookstores. Fantastic resources out there. That's enough of a sales pitch. We will include links and emails, so you can find all these things, the Xhosagram and the YouTube and everything. So don't stress. Finally, I think that's basically it. Coming in just under 7 p.m. What I like to do is give you guys a chance to just, yeah, ask a question, make a comment, especially if you feel strongly called. Maybe the best place is usually I go to the chat box, but I can't, I see nothing on WhatsApp. At least my WhatsApp's not working. I can't even see a chat box down here. You know why? There it is, chat box. Okay, I'm gonna answer a few questions. So Lucy says a big aspect that's really intriguing her is sign language to an Xhosa learner. I'm a teacher at a physical disabled school, which also caters for deaf learners, deaf or deaf? Deaf probably, up until primary school level. How different would sign language to be an Xhosa speaking people that does not have English as a foundation? Any thoughts? How different? I have no idea. It depends if they've learned sign language or not. Sign language doesn't matter how you learned it. If someone teaches you sign language in Spanish or they teach you in English, that's my understanding, is sign language is sign language. So it shouldn't matter what language they speak. It just matters whether or not they know sign language. I don't know if that answers your question. I'm not as experienced in that department as I could be. I'm on mute. Okay, that was earlier. Spot on. I taught Xhosa learners maths and science in my first year of teaching. 10 years later, I've lost the vocab tremendously. Lucy, don't worry, it'll come back. You just got to speak it. And Kamtor says, no, I live in the UK and was wondering, oh, hi, I live in the UK, was wondering how to find a language partner when the time comes. Also, any foreign exchange, cultural exchange opportunities. So, well, language partner, I mean, obviously we have facilitators. But that is obviously a paid service, but there are different ways to access that. Another example would be our Facebook group. So if you join that and you connect with other people learning, you know, you might find someone else who's like, hey, I also live in the UK and I'd be keen to meet. There are lots of people living all over the show. You might just want to put up some ads somewhere, I guess, in your communities. In terms of a foreign exchange, cultural exchange, I think you'd need to email us about that one. You could just email info@learnxhosa.coza. I can put that into the chat box, or Sanele will put that into the chat box, but it's also, it'll be in the emails. But I think, I don't know about that. There must be a lot of different NGOs that would love to have a cultural exchange student come over, volunteer for a period of time, you know, be involved, choose an area of your interest, you know, choose something that's close to your passions. And yeah, usually you'd have to fund yourself. They don't have funding to bring out volunteers, but I know a lot of people who've done that, and it's a great way. Jake has just said that there's many opportunities on workaway.org to live in the Eastern Cape, language exchange. Yeah, brilliant, great advice. I live in Nigeria at the moment, says Herman. I have the same question as Kamto. Herman, I hope that's answered. In Nigeria, there's some pretty cool languages up there to learn as well. And of course, Xhosa comes from those regions. So there are similarities. You do get what are called Bantu languages up in the Congo, up in Nigeria. Very interesting similarities, but they obviously are also very different. So there's the email address in the chat box. I think that's all the questions that I can see. So yeah, there's a couple of links there for you guys as well. All right, well, if there's no other questions, oh, Stanley asks, with level 1 to 3, would I be fluent in Xhosa? So this question of fluency gets asked a lot. And there are levels of fluency. There's fluency where you can have a conversation with someone that you meet on the street and generally be able to understand everything that gets said to you. Or for instance, you can order food and order whatever you need at a shop and kind of work out how much this, that, and the other. Then there's fluency where you watch a movie in that language and you are able to then explain in that language to a mother tongue speaker of that language what happened in the movie, okay? So, and then of course you get speaking on any topic or speaking on particular topics. So I might be really fluent at speaking Xhosa in a hospital, but have no fluency at speaking Xhosa in a legal situation in a court of law. I don't know how to say objection, Your Honor, for instance, but I would learn that so quickly if I needed to. So yeah, oh, you're closer. Thanks, Carla. That's a good recommendation. I'll show you guys that in a sec. So fluency, Stanley, it's a sliding scale. What I can say is even after level 1, we can give you a confident sense of fluency in a greeting situation, being able to introduce yourself comfortably, confidently, fluently, but then it stops and you have to exit the conversation. Level 2, way more ability to ask and answer questions, talk in tenses, talk in the negative. But again, it's, you know, there's a lot you can say, you can have great conversations, but you will reach limitations. Level 3, you start having to learn the noun groups and all the different ways in which they conjugate, and that's a huge field of learning. So generally we cover a general way of understanding it. And yeah, again, I mean, there's all these different degrees of fluency, but I think the most crucial thing is not learning level 1 to 3, it's learning whichever levels you can whilst speaking with Xhosa people. And I think that's the most important fact. Is like the more time you can spend with people speaking the language, that's really the place where you will learn. So depending on what your goal is, that's how you need to try and get there. Not everyone can just open a Xhosa textbook and become fluent in the language without any engagement with Xhosa people. Some people can, but mostly people can't. Pleasure, Darren. Wamkelekile buti hamba kakuhle. Darren's going, so is Lucas. Thank you all. The last thing I will show you, just to inspire you, is the Your Xhosa. Oh, it says I'm still screen sharing. Great, then you can see this. So on Your Xhosa, we did the yoga and Xhosa retreat last year, December. Carla was there, and that was super fun and really a great way to engage with the community. And yeah, you'll see it there on Instagram. But that's one thing that we do every year in December usually, is go out to the Eastern Cape and do yoga and learn Xhosa together and basically just enjoy our time. But we are wanting to create more of that sort of going into spaces and speaking Xhosa, and I hope that's going to continue to develop. So you will, if you stay subscribed to our various platforms, you will hear about them when they emerge. Cool. Inkosi, ndiyabulela kakhulu. Inkosi ngexesha. Thanks for your time. And yeah, there was a really cool question yesterday about the words enkosi and the words ndiyabulela, and the difference between them. And I don't know if I should say it quick. I can feel my voice box is beginning to tire, but yeah, enkosi is quite cool because it comes from the word for a chief or a lord, which is inkos, inkosi. And like you hear people saying nkosi yam, talking about Jesus in a Christian context, or nkosi yam talking about the chief or the lord in another context. Sip of tea. And so nkosi kind of means like in the spirit of the chief or in the spirit of the Lord. May you be in that spirit. So I have gratitude for you, and you know, enkosi. Whereas bulela means to give thanks or to praise, and it's similar in Zulu. You say bonga, siyabonga. Now in Zulu you use siyabonga when you want to say it's either ngiyabonga, I am grateful, or siyabonga, we are grateful. Xhosa they would say ndiyabulela or siyabulela, and yeah, they are basically. But bonga still exists in Xhosa. It's just more like formalized. It's more like, you know, uyabonga, like it's like you're praising. That's why imbongi is a praise singer, because bayabonga. So or yabonga imbongi. So the word exists in both, but in Xhosa they use bulela. And what I really like about bulela is it's saying that I'm not just thankful, I'm actually appreciative and grateful for whatever this thing is that you're doing. Just like in English, you can say thank you, I'm grateful. And of course, enkosi gets used, so a lot of people will add it on. Enkosi ndiyabulela. So ndiyabulela nam, Please share the Xhosa dictionary that saves the shortcut on this page. Okay, Carla, remind me if we don't. They don't all work. I can show you here, actually. Let me move this chat box thingy. Xhosa dictionary. That one's not so good, actually. It's like gononda.com/Xhosa or something. There's a better one. I can't remember what it's called. And then Oxford Dictionaries used to have this brilliant one, and then they took it away. I don't know what's up. It's just so sad. But this one's not a great one. But sometimes it gives you an answer. You just have to search. Like, this is the dictionary I got, which came from Oxford, and I think it's really great. Let me see if I can stop sharing. There we go. Oxford Xhosa Isingesi, English Xhosa. It's very cool. And yeah, we can put that in a link, but just Google Oxford Xhosa Dictionary. Kamto says, outside the home west is Xhosa most likely to be spoken, please? Wherever there are Xhosa people. Yeah, like you'll see in workplaces, the Xhosa people all speak Xhosa together, or in the school, the Xhosa people speak Xhosa together, and then the English people speak English, and Afrikaans people speak Afrikaans, and then a few people speak all. But no, there's Xhosa spoken everywhere. Thank you, Annette. Enkosi kakhulu, ndiyabulela futhi. And guys, thank you, well done. We managed to get through this hour of learning Xhosa. And yeah, I appreciate you all coming through. As I said, sorry that I had to monologue at you all. But I hope that I met your expectations, gave you some good advice, good guidance. And yeah, I wish you the best. And also the best for all of us. And yeah, I'm positive. I think things are good. Actually, they're always the same. I think that's the beautiful thing about the Tao and the yin yang. It's like everything's always in balance. There's always equal good and bad, light and dark, up and down. It's just what we see, you know, that's the thing. So be mindful of what you're seeing. And sometimes the bad stuff, is bringing us lessons and like helping us grow. And we can use it. We can transform negativity into something that teaches us, makes us a better person. So maybe that's like a final little thing I want to say, seeing that I've got a platform to preach to. Don't get too bogged down by all the negativity. Even though obviously it's good to be aware, you know, I'm not saying like don't be aware of things. But yeah, you don't need to see stuff about Trump every day. You don't need to see stuff about COVID every day, the stats every day, the number went this way and the Dow Jones went this way and the JSE went this way. Who cares, guys? Who actually cares? I know it does affect some people, and don't actually listen to me at all. The only thing I'm good at is teaching you Xhosa, and only if you are really bad at it. Okay, guys, enkosi, ndiyabulela kakhulu. I'm gonna go and take rest. Take care, everyone. Bye. Bye-bye.